Good morning. This is Mission Control Houston live from the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where teams are monitoring the final approach of Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo vehicle, delivering about 8,200 pounds of research, crew supplies, and hardware to the International Space Station. Cygnus is currently inside the approach ellipsoid, or what we like to call the neighborhood of the International Space Station. Here's a live look now at Cygnus on its way to the International Space Station. Cygnus is currently sitting about 598 meters away from the International Space Station, and is looking like an on-time capture around 5:10 a.m. Central Time. Here in Mission Control Houston, the Orbit 1 team is on console. Teams here are being led by Flight Director Marcos Flores. He will also be communicating and working hand in hand with Northrop Grumman's team in Dulles, Virginia. To his right is Leslie Ringo, the Capcom today. You're going to hear her voice this morning as she speaks to the crew aboard the International Space Station. She'll be filtering information from the teams here in Mission Control up to the astronauts aboard the station. Visiting Vehicle Officer Dwayne Eldridge will be communicating directly with Northrop Grumman's flight control team in Dulles, Virginia, relaying vehicle status and updates back to the teams here in Mission Control Houston.
Go ahead.
And Northrop Grumman's mission director, Zach Dwyer, is monitoring teams and controllers in the Northrop Grumman Flight Control Room in Dulles, Virginia.
So you'll see in the video that there's kind of dust all the way down through the IMV duct, and so there's no way to get a vacuum down there. So I just wanted to make sure there's nothing else you want me to do in 6.5.
Copy, Shane. In 6.5, we're looking for best effort with the tools that you have.
We are now in a short signal handover period between satellites, but communication should be back up shortly. Cygnus is now approaching what's called the 250-meter hold point. This is one of the milestones you'll see today designed into Cygnus's approach. Once Cygnus reaches the 250-meter hold point, teams will run a series of checks and go-no-go polls from flight controllers before Cygnus can depart that hold. Once Cygnus departs 250-meter hold, the next milestone will be the 30-meter hold point. That'll be the last milestone to make sure all systems are a go before Cygnus gets about 10 to 12 meters away from the International Space Station. When Cygnus arrives to that capture point this morning, NASA astronaut Megan McArthur will capture the spacecraft with the station's robotic arm. She'll be backed by ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet. Following that, the controls of the robotic arm will be handed over to robotics officers on the ground, who will then bring Cygnus closer into the station for installation later this morning on the Earth-facing side of the Unity module, where it will remain for about 3 months. This cargo resupply mission started 2 days ago when Cygnus launched atop of an Antares 230 Plus rocket Tuesday, August 10th at 5:01 p.m. Central Time from Pad 0A at NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. At the time of launch, the International Space Station was flying 271 statute miles over the southern Indian Ocean. About 2.5 hours later, solar arrays were deployed and Cygnus continued its journey to the International Space Station. Since then, Cygnus has performed a series of rendezvous burns to fine-tune its path to the International Space Station, where it will arrive this morning around 5:10 a.m. Central Time. Again, you are now getting a live view of Cygnus as it approaches the 250-meter hold point. Currently, Cygnus is about 331 meters away from the International Space Station. This resupply mission is delivering about 8,200 pounds of science, research, crew supplies, and vehicle hardware to the International Space Station this morning. Of the 8,200 pounds of cargo is more than 2,300 pounds of science investigations. Let's take a look at some of the scientific investigations that is headed to the space station. And there you have it. That's just a few of the hundreds of experiments currently going on aboard the space station. Researching experiments like these are essential to support future deep space exploration, with the Artemis program venturing us to the moon and onto Mars. If you're just joining us, this is Mission Control Houston, live from the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where teams are monitoring the final approach of Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo vehicle, delivering about 8,200 pounds of research, crew supplies, and hardware to the International Space Station. You are currently seeing a live look at Cygnus on its way to the International Space Station, now sitting at just under 270 meters away from the International Space Station for an on-time capture around 5:10 a.m. Central Time today. The International Space Station is currently flying over the Philippine Sea about 262 statute miles above the Earth as Cygnus approaches that 250-meter hold point. Again, we're standing by as Cygnus approaches the 250-meter hold point on its way to the International Space Station. The range and rate we're getting now is decreasing as expected when approaching the hold point. Once we reach the hold point at 250 meters, Cygnus will maintain the altitude as teams run a series of checks before departing again to the next milestone. And we are currently about 1 minute out from Cygnus arriving at that 250-meter hold point. Cygnus has now reached a 250-meter hold point. It is now holding and will stay at the same altitude for about 10 minutes while checks are ran and flight controllers in the room take a go, no-go poll to proceed in Cygnus's capture this morning.
Station Houston and 2 for Megan and Thomas, please confirm the Cygnus 250-meter hold for step 2 in 1.102.
And Houston station on 2 for step 2 in 1102. We have a good 250 meters hold. We have a primary range of 252, 50 roughly for now. And for Block Bravo on monitor 1, the light is inside the corridor. The vehicle size matches the outline. The light is inside the circle, and the circle is one or half a vehicle width towards starboard. In monitor 3, on monitor 3, the light is inside the corridor. The vehicle size matches the outline. The light is inside the circle, and same offset. The circle is half a vehicle width starboard of the corridor center.
Copy, that was a nominal Block Bravo. I'm looking for the LED panel status.
And all the other conditions are verified.
Copy.
That was Capcom Leslie Ringo confirming with MacArthur and Pesquet that Cygnus is now holding at the 250-meter hold point. We can expect Cygnus to hold here for another 5 minutes and 30 seconds before it continues on to its next milestone, the 30-meter hold point. The view we're getting now is a view of what's called the RPOP, or a Rendezvous Proximity Operations Program, on a laptop in a workstation inside the cupola on board the International Space Station. This is the same view that Expedition 65 NASA flight engineer Megan MacArthur is seeing as she monitors from the cupola this morning. When Cygnus arrives to the space station this morning, Expedition 65 flight engineer Megan McArthur will capture the spacecraft, backed by European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet. Pesquet will essentially be a second set of eyes and ears on board the station this morning. Each Cygnus spacecraft is named after influential individuals in the world of spaceflight, and this Cygnus spacecraft is named and dedicated to Ellison Onizuka, who was selected in honor of his prominence as the first Asian American astronaut. Onizuka had his first flight experience on January 24, 1985, when he flew as a mission specialist aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery for SDS-51C, the first space shuttle mission for the Department of Defense. By the time the flight had been completed,
Houston on 2, Cygnus and ISS are configured for approach inside the keep-out sphere. Expect approach to resume shortly and stand by for the Cygnus PCS command checkout.
Station copies all.
that was Leslie Ringo, Capcom, confirming with the crew that Cygnus will leave its 250-meter hold point in just under a minute and restart its approach, entering the keep-out sphere, which is that 200-meter radius around the space station.
Station Houston and 2, Cygnus has resumed approach. Go for Cygnus PCS command checkout. Hold arm per step 3 in 1.102.
Copy, receive EV mode is approach. We're in step 3 of 1102.
Station on 2 for airlock.
Go ahead, Shane.
I say we can do this whenever you guys want, whenever the timing's right, but I'll take the steps for the charging whenever you have it.
Okay, if we could get through the PCS checkout, I'll give you a call back.
Sounds good.
Houston Station on 2 as per step 3. The hold arm command is flashing.
Copy and checking. And the hold arm is confirmed. You are go for Cygnus PCS command checkout. Disarm per step 4 in 1.102.
Copy, we'll go for 4 in 1102 in work. Houston Station on 4 for step 4 of 1102. The hold command is disarmed.
Checking. and the Cygnus PCS command checkout was successful. Begin monitoring approach from 250 meters per step 5 in 1.102.
Copy, monitoring approach per step 5.
In addition, Cygnus is inside the 200-meter keep-out sphere. Crew now has authority to issue an abort if no comm with MCCH, and the light is outside of the corridor.
Copy, authority to issue commands with if no comm with MCH and the light is outside the corridor.
Good read back.
And Houston Station on 2 for block Bravo. I see a nominal block Bravo with the same offset as before, namely the circle is half a vehicle width starboard of the corridor. All other parameters are nominal.
And that's a good call.
That's on both monitor 1 on 3.
Copy.
And you just heard confirmation from Thomas Pesquet as well as Leslie Ringo, the Capcom here in Mission Control Houston, that Cygnus is inside the keep-out sphere, that 200-meter radius around the space station. The next milestone will be Cygnus continuing its approach to the 30-meter hold point. That'll be the last milestone to make sure all the systems are a go before Cygnus gets about 10 to 12 meters away from the space station for capture this morning. Taking another look at what is called the RPOP workstation. It's a workstation on board the International Space Station that is a view from a camera pointed toward the workstation. This is telemetry data that is being fed to the International Space Station. Now where NASA astronaut Megan McArthur, backed by Thomas Pesquet, are viewing and monitoring the final approach this morning. We are currently in an orbital nighttime. You can see Cygnus identified with the green and red dot in the center of your screen. Cygnus is currently on its way to the 30-meter hold point. If you're just joining us, this is Mission Control Houston live from the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where teams are monitoring the final approach of Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo vehicle, delivering about 8,200 pounds of research.
For approach monitoring, we see nominal block Bravo SEM offset as reported before on both monitors.
Copy. A good call.
Cygnus is currently inside the keep-out sphere, the 200-meter radius around the International Space Station. You're seeing a live view of Cygnus as it's on its way to the International Space Station, now sitting just under 112 meters away from the International Space Station for an on-time capture around 5:10 a.m. Central Time. The International Space Station and Cygnus now flying in an orbital nighttime 270 statute miles above the South Pacific Ocean. Cygnus is just under 82 meters away from the International Space Station, on its way to that 30-meter hold point.
Houston Station on 2 for approach monitoring, block Bravo. I see a nominal block Bravo, same offset starboard by almost half a vehicle width. As reported before on both monitor, the rest of the parameters are nominal.
Copy all.
Cygnus is now just under 60 meters away from the International Space Station on its final trek, therefore its arrival at the 30-meter hold point, which is the next milestone. The 30-meter hold point is an important milestone because it is the final step before reaching the capture point, 10 to 12 meters away from the International Space Station. Again, this resupply mission is delivering about 8,200 pounds of science, research, crew supplies, and vehicle hardware to the International Space Station this morning. Of that 8,200 pounds of cargo is about 2,300 pounds of science investigations. One of those science investigations includes the CREPI, or Kentucky Reentry Probe Experiment, demonstrating an affordable thermal protection system to protect the spacecraft and its contents during re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Making these systems efficient remains one of of space exploration's biggest challenges, but the unique environment of the atmospheric reentry makes it difficult to accurately replicate conditions in ground simulations. Thermal protection systems designers rely on numerical models that often lack flight validation. This investigation serves as an inexpensive way to compare these models to actual flight data and validate possible designs. Before flying the technology on the space station, researchers conducted a high-altitude balloon test to validate performance of the electronics and communications. Just to recap so far, Cygnus has departed the 250-meter hold point and is headed to the next milestone, which is the 30-meter hold point. We'll continue to get views as Cygnus approaches the International Space Station, carrying that 8,200 pounds of vehicle hardware, crew supplies, science, and research. Cygnus is just under 45 meters away from the International Space Station. The International Space Station and Cygnus are still flying in orbital nighttime about 270 statute miles above the South Pacific Ocean, approaching South America. We are looking live as Cygnus approaches that 30-meter hold point, now sitting about 40 meters away from the International Space Station. Again, once Cygnus arrives at that 30-meter hold position, mission control teams in Dulles will perform state-of-health checks on the Cygnus vehicle. This 30-meter hold point is the stopping point to verifying that everything is in the green and looks good before Cygnus makes its final approach to the International Space Station for capture this morning. You're currently seeing a live view of the International Space Station Flight Control Room here in Houston, Texas. We are still approaching that 30-meter hold point, and Cygnus is now sitting around 36 meters away from the International Space Station.
Houston Station on 2 for approach monitoring per block Bravo. Now everything is centered. The light is inside the corridor. The vehicle size matches the outline. The light is inside the circle, and the circle is centered in the corridor on both monitors 1 and 3. So everything has converged.
Copy all. That's a good report. Station Houston and 2 confirmed the 30-meter hold and set it for capture per step 6 in 1.102.
Houston Station, we confirm 30-meter hold per step 6. The VV mode is hold, and the primary range is 30.75.
Copy.
You just heard from Capcom Leslie Ringo here in Mission Control Houston, relaying to MacArthur and Pesquet that Cygnus has arrived to the 30-meter hold point successfully. Again, teams are working now and running a series of checks to make sure everything looks good on the vehicle before its final approach to the station. The space station and Cygnus are currently traveling over South America. As the series of checks continue at this 30-meter hold point, there will also be a go-no-go poll from the flight controllers, making sure everything on their end checks out before the final approach to the station. This is a very important milestone because the next one will be the arrival of Cygnus at the capture point about 10 to 12 meters away from the International Space Station. You can now see the robotic arm at the bottom of your screen. It is ready and in position to reach out and capture 8,200 pounds of cargo traveling today. Cygnus is still at the 30-meter hold point, waiting to depart. You'll hear that from Capcom Leslie Ringo here in Mission Control Houston today. We are currently in joint operations right now as Cygnus still holds at 30 meters. Here in Mission Control Houston, teams are working from the space station side of things, while Northrop Grumman's team works in the Flight Control Center over in Dulles, Virginia. These teams are working together through the visiting vehicle officer, Dwayne Eldridge, here in Mission Control Houston. Teams here in Mission Control Houston, teams in Dulles, Virginia, and the crew aboard the station all are ready to depart the 30-minute hold point and proceed to the capture point in just under 30 seconds. We're still holding, but shortly Cygnus will be configured for that final departure and arrival to the capture point.
Houston Station for 110 Cygnus capture. Step 3 is complete. You're ready for Cygnus approach to the capture point.
Copy and stand by. And Station Houston and 2, Cygnus is ready to proceed to the capture point. Expect approach to resume shortly.
Copy.
You heard Capcom Leslie Ringo here in Mission Control Houston confirming Cygnus is ready to depart the 30-meter hold point.
Station Houston and 2, Cygnus has resumed approach to the capture point. Monitor approach within 30 meters per step 7 and 1.102. Crew is primed to issue a retreat if the primary range is less than 6 meters.
Copy. We see VV mode is approached. The primary range is decreasing. Nominal block Bravo, no change.
Copy.
That was Leslie Ringo and European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet confirming that Cygnus is back on track and approaching that capture point this morning. We are expecting that about 7 minutes and 30 seconds from now. At the controls of the robotic arm today is Megan MacArthur, and she will be capturing Cygnus at 5:10 a.m. Central Time. This is the final approach as Cygnus heads into the capture point. Once Cygnus is captured, there are several more steps to make sure Cygnus is ready to be installed to the International Space Station. If you are just joining us, good morning. This is Mission Control Houston live from the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where teams are monitoring the final approach of Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo vehicle, delivering about 8,200 pounds of research, crew supplies, and hardware to the International Space Station. Cygnus has just departed the 30-meter hold point and is on its way to the capture point this morning. Here's a live look at Cygnus on its way to the International Space Station, now sitting at just under 17 meters away from the International Space Station.
Station on 2-4, still step 7 approach monitoring with your nominal block Bravo.
Copy.
Now sitting at just under 16 meters away from the International Space Station, Cygnus is ready for an on-time capture around 5:10 a.m. Central Time. At the controls of the robotic arm is NASA astronaut Megan McArthur, backed by Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency. The Canadarm2 that'll be used for capture this morning is part of Canada's contribution to the International Space Station. A 57.7-foot-long arm was largely involved in the assembly of the orbiting laboratory. Each end of the Canadarm2 features an identical hand, known as the latching end effector. These pieces contain cables that tighten to ensure a strong grip. They allow the robotic arm to firmly grasp objects like we will see today with Cygnus. Once Cygnus is captured this morning, controls of the robotic arm will be handed over to the robotics controllers on the ground to install Cygnus to the station for berthing later this morning. And Cygnus has arrived at the capture point.
Station Houston and 2, confirm the capture point hold for step 8 and 1.102.
In station on 2, step 8, 1102. We confirm the capture conditions are all met and the crew is ready for Cygnus capture.
Stand by for capture.
You can see Cygnus in view at the end of the space station's robotic arm. This is a view from the Canadarm itself. Cygnus is now sitting at 12 meters away from the International Space Station. We are currently going through a go, no-go poll around the room to ensure that Cygnus is ready for capture this morning.
Station Houston and 2, go for Cygnus capture sequence. Step 4 and 1.110 Cygnus capture. Begin monitoring the backaway cue card.
Copy, we'll go for step 4 in 1.110 and we're monitoring the backaway cue card.
Good read back.
That was Capcom Leslie Ringo confirming Cygnus's go for capture. All the milestones this morning are complete. Now heading into our last step of the capture itself. In just a few more minutes, we should start seeing the robotic arm moving in closer to Cygnus for an on-time capture today, around 5:10 a.m. Central Time. Once the Canadarm2 starts moving, there will be a series of checks before capture. Some readouts of the distance from the arm to the capture position over the pin. Then the snares will be closed, and we will wait for confirmation of capture. Cygnus is now in free drift, configured for capture.
Houston Station on 2, we're beginning our approach.
Copy.
We have confirmation the arm is in motion. This is the final stretch for capture for the Cygnus resupply cargo spacecraft this morning. The Canadarm2 is now about 2 meters away from Cygnus. .5 meters away. Canadarm2 is now 1 meter away from capture. Canadarm2 is now over the pin. Snares are close, now waiting for that final stage of capture. And we have confirmed capture at 5:07 a.m. Central Time, 6:07 a.m. Eastern, as the International Space Station and Cygnus were flying 270 statute miles above southwest Portugal.
Houston Station on Space to Ground 2. Cygnus capture is complete. You are go for Cygnus post-capture reconfig.
Congratulations, and it's great to have Cygnus back at ISS.
Thanks, Leslie. On behalf of the Expedition 65 crew, I'm pleased to bring the Cygnus spacecraft SS Ellison Onizuka aboard the International Space Station today. Our congratulations go out to the combined teams from Northrop Grumman and NASA for the mission successes so far. This mission enables groundbreaking research through which we hope to meet Colonel Onizuka's challenge to enable the next generation to look out from a higher plateau.
And you heard some word from Capcom Leslie Ringo and Megan MacArthur aboard the station, who successfully captured the Cygnus vehicle today at 5:07 a.m. Central Time, 6:07 a.m. Eastern Time, as the International Space Station and Cygnus were flying 262 statute miles above southwest Portugal. Cygnus began its journey to the International Space Station after lifting off from the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia on top of an Antares rocket on Tuesday, August 10th at 5:01 p.m. Central Time. Cygnus made a two-day journey to be captured by NASA's Megan MacArthur at the controls of the Canada-2 robotic arm, backed by Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency, at 5:07 a.m. Central Time today, as the International Space Station flew 262 statute miles above southwest Portugal. The Cygnus spacecraft for this space station resupply mission was dedicated to Ellison Onizuka, selected as the first Asian American astronaut. Onizuka, who spent nearly his entire life flying in air and in space, lost his life during the STS-51L mission when the space station's shuttle Challenger exploded 73 seconds after launch. He made the ultimate sacrifice in service to the space program, and his legacy lives on in his fellow astronauts and all who has been inspired and taught to fly. We will be back on air here shortly at 7 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for installation coverage, where the SS Ellison Onizuka will be installed to the International Space Station. Before that, 8,200 pounds of cargo can be unloaded. And that'll wrap up our coverage for a successful capture this morning.